Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. That's on the Eastern Time Zone, as we get to ride home with each other and get to share 30 minutes with each other. We appreciate the time that we get to spend with you. You can find us syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on the newscasters.com. You find us on all the social media sites. Facebook.com/DFiesel. You'll be able to find us that way. X. If it's social media, we're doing it. We are Fox News affiliates and really proud to be again with you guys as well. You know, we are celebrating 20 years with the show, Donna's Edge Talk Show, and very appreciative to all of our sponsors who stayed with us and also our audience. You guys are the absolute best. And we did have the best guest. So we found this guy right here. His name is Ron Foster. He is an author. And what are some of the other things you do, Ron?
You name it, I've been there. I've been a soldier, Army. I was Air Force Airman, gemologist, emergency manager. Done a lot of different things.
Oh, well, we're going to have a lot of shows. Gemologist? Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
I'm a wealth of useless information or useful, depending on what you need.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll use you as a source when I need some advice on something. How about that?
That'd be great.
Now, where do you live? Oh, by the way, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it. Thank you for your service, Ron.
I said, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We did. I think we had a little bit of a bleep going on there.
Yes.
So, you're an author and a speaker. So how many books have you written?
I've written 76
okay.
and published over 100. I did a project one time we called a Prepper Archaeology Project, where a lot of the books that were out of print that had techniques, survival skills, etc. the preppers need, I annotated all those, and then we republished. So actually, I got over 100 books out there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, about the survival skills coming up in just a few minutes. But you've written a brand new book. What's it about?
Don't have anything new. I'm on my back catalog right at the moment. I've been writing for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out, my first book was The Road March. I pretended I was a FEMA manager going to Atlanta for an interview. And the solar storm went off. A lot of people don't realize what a Carrington event is. Mm-hmm. In 1860, the solar flare went off, and it knocked out all the technology they had back then, which was the telegraph. Buildings caught fire, telegraph operators got shocked, etc. If we have the same event today, these computer chips in the cars and whatnot, everything shuts down. And so I have my character stranded in Atlanta. He's away from his bug-out bag. Preppers like bug-out bags. And I was showing people how to do it just off your wits. One of my sayings is prepare to lose everything but your mind. And I combined the 3 books in the trilogy into, let me get this straight here. The Longest Walk, but you see all the cars broken down, etc. That's what it's going to look like. You're going to be stranded out on the road, away from everything, and you need to have some kind of preparedness in mind or something in your car for that sort of thing.
Being prepared is what it's all about. A lot of folks are not prepared. Now, my husband and I, we kind of live off the land. And what I mean by that is we have land, we have a farm, we have, we raise all kinds of vegetables and fruits and fruit trees and all those kinds of things. And should something like that go down, and I think it could. I think it could happen at any moment. So
I love gardening.
Yeah, I mean, like, what if the grid went down? I mean, folks like me and you would be able to survive it. But I'm not talking about the average American citizen. What if the grid went down? What would happen?
Well, the government says if we have another Carrington type event, coronal mass ejection, only 90% of the people in America will be alive after the first year. Mm-hmm. There's no gas, no water. They just don't know how to get by. And I try to give tips for people, for everyday life too. Like in that particular event, when all the cars broke down, the hero or whatever it's called, David, it's actually me playing around the book, noticing all the women's shoes on the road. You don't have sensible shoes in your car. If you break down, all you got is heels. That's everyday stuff. You think about it. You're not going to be walking miles and those things. You have sensible shoes in your car at all times. Situational awareness of, where is water at? How can you obtain it? Water is a great equalizer. And when the municipal water shuts off, everybody's going to head for the water hole. And just like in Africa, all the predators are going to be at the water hole looking for, opportunity. So if you can stay home, store a little bit of water, think about how you're going to replenish your water. Ask your neighbor and say, hey, is that a chlorine pool next door or is that a saltwater pool? That sort of thing. A lot of my books focus on Florida, too. I'm pretending I'm in Florida today with my backdrop. Can you desalinate water? It's pretty easy to do. But majority of people can't do it, so all they're going to be able to do is head inland. If the cars don't work, that's a lot of walking. And there's no water on the beach. So those type of situations is just a little bit of knowledge will get you by. Lack of knowledge will get you killed.
So when it comes right down to it, are we better off with gasoline cars or electric cars or a combination of both?
Definitely gas, but you got to know, when the power goes out, the gas pumps turn off. If you don't have gas stored or know how to stabilize gas, add something so it doesn't break down. Also, I put in there, my books kind of cover A to Z on, what can you do? If you read all my books, I say you get a PhD in preparedness or preppers, Like, for example, water, they have a thing called a Silcox key. If you see on the outside of these big buildings in cities or hotels or whatever, that it's restricted access to the water. And the water's in the pipes, gravity fed. If you got one of those things, you can get water. Knowing those things is what preppers do. We have these extra little gadgets or something. Or you get, for gasoline, if the pump goes out, a well bullet, or if you have a well on your property, how are you going to get water out of your well without electricity? So a well bullet is basically nothing more than a can that goes down the pipe. It's got a foot valve on it, and water goes up, and you pull it back up by hand. You can do that on gasoline too, but I tell people a lot of things. I'll tell them everything I know, but a lot of stuff I know I'll get you in trouble. Basically, you got to figure out what are you going to do? How are you going to get to your loved ones? Have a plan of some sort. What's going to happen if somebody needs some help, and how can you help them? If somebody's distant, how are you going to communicate with them? Things of this nature. Of course, being from the deep south, we're always around the hurricanes and things of this nature. Pretty resilient people down here, but there's a lot of things that go on that just takes society down. You think it's bad enough getting somebody to do the job to begin with. There's many things FEMA doesn't have a plan for, and everybody thinks the government's going to rescue them, and it's not going to happen.
No, it's not. I'll have to tell you, the hurricane came through up to, North Carolina. It somehow skipped over Atlanta and went to Asheville, North Carolina. And we lived in Charlotte for a number of years, so we have a lot of friends out in the area. And I just thought it was interesting because we had been going to the Cowboy Church. Cowboy Church is a little bit different than the regular typical church. And so a bunch of those guys got together, brought chuck wagons. Just, wanting to help people.
Wonderful.
And but FEMA stopped them. And they tried to confiscate their water and the food they were trying to bring out there. So Philip Gillen called me. He's with the American Fellowship of Cowboy Churches. And he said, I'm just kind of ticked off right now. And I said, what is it? And he said, we brought chuck wagons full of food, full of water, full of everything. And FEMA stopped us. Well, there was a sheriff in good old Tennessee, right up there at the line, really close to Asheville, North Carolina. I don't know what he did, but the Cowboy Church actually got to go through. So they were able to take the water and supplies out there. But it's a simple thing.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Oh man, they did a really great job. So we want to thank them for everything they did to help those folks out there in North Carolina. But there's so many things that people just really don't think about. And let's talk about this, because anytime you take a trip, you have your good old handy cell phone here, right? It has GPS on it. And GPS sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. But how important is it for us to know how to read a map? You know those old maps back in the day that you just fold out?
Oh, yeah. I use a flip phone, so I'm still doing it the old way, and it drives people crazy. And I'm having to memorize where I'm going first. And people need no direction. If you don't have anything, have a sense of direction. Most people, you ask them where's north, south, or whatever, and they have to think for a minute or two and figure it out. You stick them out in the woods, they can't figure it out at all, you know. But what you're saying about the cowboy church, that's very interesting. We have cowboy type thing in Alabama where they have all the wagons go out and they do a long ride, etc. Got the match mules out there. I never heard of those before. Those things cost more than racehorses. But I put those in as characters. I'm quite good about picking up on history or friends or something. I tell people, watch out, you're going to get put in the book, what you say around me. You know? So it works out well.
I'll tell you something that's very interesting. You know, the church shootings that happen sometimes, church shootings, school shootings, and things like that. And so my husband and I have laughed about if someone would be stupid enough to actually go and try to shoot people at a cowboy church, they wouldn't be able to get the first shot, because there would be everybody in the church, women included, probably a few kids would have their gun out at the shooter. So you feel a cowboy church is probably one of the safest places you can be at. Like that. Let's talk a little bit about food and about food resources. Great. And because I love gardening. I mean, it's in my blood. My granddad, would take a tomato plant, looked like he was almost killing it, because he would take all of the stems off and then he would kind of lay it sideways, stem it like this, and this would be part of the root. And he would plant it into the ground like that. And I would say, Papa, you're killing it. And he would say, no, this thing has to have a good root system. If it doesn't have a good root, you're not going to have any tomatoes. The first windstorm that comes up is going to knock the tomatoes off and you won't have any. How important is it for us to just kind of be in nature about plants, to understand if they need water?
It's very important. I've also written a book called Bug Out Garden. The preppers, they buy these cans, number 10 cans, full of so-called survival seeds and whatnot. If you never gardened before, you're not going to make it. And then some of them are ridiculous. They got asparagus seeds in there. Sounds great. It's going to take years for those things to grow. If you don't have any experience now, trying a garden, etc., or being out in nature, observing nature, what are the animals doing? What are the weeds out there? Everybody spends all this money eradicating dandelions when it's one of the best foods out there. And I came up with one survival trick I call it disaster plaster. I got a packet of every kind of edible weed that I can think of. If the poo hits the fan, you can throw that down there and it'll start growing. You can recognize them early, etc. You got instant garden because weeds grow like weeds type of thing. And if you know what to do with it. What are you going to do for firewood instead of, having your firewood delivered? You have a means of getting it. Know what to look out for. Everybody's saying, they're going to bug out to the woods. That's a good way to die. You got to bug in, be ready, and have some skills.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's talk just for a minute about vinegar. I make my own vinegar because I know what's in it. I don't throw anything away. And that's what part of the show is about, by the way. So I keep everything. Excellent. So I'll peel an apple and, I'll keep part of the peeling. I go to the grocery store, a lot of carts, you'll see a cart right when you walk into the grocery store and it will have bags of marked down produce. That's free vinegar, basically. I mean, because you can make vinegar out of basically anything. And it's probably the best nourishing thing you can put into your body. I mean, it's good for all kinds of things.
Vinegar is great. And a lot of people don't realize, too, like you go to the grocery store right before the storm or right before the grid goes down, you cut off the top of a carrot. Instead of throwing that away, plant that thing. It'll grow a carrot, people don't have common sense or exposure to these things. So I put people in situations in my books they can learn it this way. People learn more from my books than reading a dry survival book. Now, I've got a survival book, a couple of them, but the way I put it, I don't know if you can see the title of that, Old Fart Survival Guide. Which
I want that one. I want that one.
Oh, I'll send you one. Yeah, but I put a bunch of different things in there that I learned from, I went to military survival schools, and then I grew up Southern, and I put everything I knew in that one to get somebody by, especially when our hair gets gray or whatever. But I'll have in there, explanations of why you learn this. Like I got a bird snare and things like that in there. I said, if you don't know how to catch a bird, you're reduced to eating what a bird eats, which is grubs and worms. And I'm not eating that. I'd rather eat bird bits and rice, And my favorite survivor is a pair of kids walking in with a Daisy 880 and a old cow pasture. They know where everything's at, and they can eat, they can get by, and you can actually live in your backyard if you have a little sense about it, where we see everyday birds, put a bunch of seeds on the thing, you got your BB gun, there we go, So even with nothing, I can get by, and then teach you the traps and different things and applications for things.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about foraging. We have to go into a commercial break, but when we come back, let's talk about foraging. Okay.
Oh, yes. I love foraging.
We have not a whole lot of acreage here. We have 8 acres, and I'm finding all kinds of little treasures out here on this acreage. I really am. We'll be right back in just a minute. Everybody hang in there.
Oh, good.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for 2 or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Man, I am loving this interview. I'm all into foraging, how to make things work. My grandmother would just argue with all of us to pieces about Christmas. And so she used lard and always had the absolute best biscuits, by the way, the best pie crust, the best everything. But now they had their own cattle. They had their own pigs. And so they would render lard. So I know how to do that. And there's a trick to it, though. You can't let it get too hot. You can't let it burn. So now the doctors finally are telling us lard is actually better for you, okay, because it's not made out of petroleum. It's actually from a pig or beef tallow from a cow. So now they're finally getting around to the rest of us. So, wow. The things we were told were bad for us are actually good for us now. There was a time you couldn't eat eggs. You remember when they're back in the 70s? 60s? Yeah, don't eat eggs. That's a bad thing. And by the way, I used to think my grandmother was so snooty. about buying eggs from the grocery store. My grandmother would say, I wouldn't have one of those because she had her own chickens. We have our own chickens. So she had her own chickens, and she said, you'll notice the yolk is almost white. But it's not good for you. The yolk of an egg has to be almost orange.
Exactly.
What do you say about that?
Yeah, I go with the same theory on that, but a lot of people don't understand, like, they haven't raised chickens before, been around eggs, etc., about not washing the egg because it's got a film on it that naturally helps that. I had my characters went into business. They went over to Lowe's, got the hydrated lime. We started liming eggs, so we had them for a year. And we have to barter and trade and all that sort of thing instead of going bad. So, and foraging, everybody needs that app on their phone. I wish I'd used the big phone. I usually bump somebody if I don't know that, because you can get free things to just point it at whatever you want and tells you what it is without having to study a bunch of pictures that might not, ring true with you or whatever. Everybody should identify at least one edible plant around their home and then start spotting for things like that. You start looking at things different when you say, hey, I might have to eat this or that, or the weeds in your garden that you're getting rid of. Are they good for anything? Are they medicinal? Are they edible? Things of this nature. I'd bought a piece of property in Highland Home, Alabama one time. Used to be a hog farm and things full of purslane. I hate that stuff, because they hadn't planned it for the pigs. And they get in the garden, it takes over. But it's one of the best things. And I see people selling purslane seeds, and I say, hey, don't put that in your garden now. Know what it is that you're playing with.
Mm-hmm. I raise herbs, and I'm just into it. I have asthma, and so I went to the doctor about the asthma specialist, and the asthma specialist was trying to sell me a breathing machine. So I spoke with a lady who is in the nursing profession. I knew she would tell me the truth, and I said, I almost feel like she was trying to sell me a vacuum cleaner. I said, do I need this breathing machine? And she said, no. She said, because you're going to get dependent on that machine. And before long, you're going to be walking around with this little machine with wheels on it, and you won't be able to breathe around. She said, take ginger root. Best thing I ever did. Ginger root. You make a tea out of it. You can do all kinds of stuff. And I'm not using the breathing machine. I'm not even using the inhaler anymore.
Oh, very good. A lot of times, like, I just got a big, about 100-foot tall sweet gum cut off the property. The thing was driving me crazy because everywhere them little spiky balls fall, you end up with sweet gum trees. They take over. But if you take the same sweet gum balls when they're green, you soak them in vodka, you got the equivalent of Tamiflu, and it'll knock out the flu 3 days earlier.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I'm all into the roots and herbs and things. I wrote a book called The Apocalyptic Apothecary, by the way. We pretended like we found in the attic a Civil War apothecary. And I go back to what did you use for snake bite? What do you use for malaria, etc., and put all that in there.
Well, what if something like COVID happens again? Something like that, something similar. I didn't take the vaccine. My husband, we just chose not to.
Very smart.
Yeah. My brother tried to shame us. He's had every COVID shot you could have. And so he tried to shame us because he said, oh, you're just going to make mothers sick, stuff like that. He now regrets it. He wishes he had not done that. And I said, well, too late. You should have listened.
Oh, yeah. More and more is coming out on, problems with people, etc. Mm-hmm. Amazon, they book banned a bunch of people. Then I did one called Mass Darkness Falls, fiction book. But because I was complaining about the mask, they book banned me on that one. I had 9 5-star reviews on that. 3 of the herbalists I know said, hey, this helps with COVID. They banned their books, and then all the YouTube channels, you get whacked and all that sort of thing. So it's hopefully this new administration, we're going to get things a little bit straighter. And I hear the states are going after Fauci about it.
Uh-huh. That guy needs to be in prison as far as I'm concerned. Here, I'll get kicked off YouTube again, but he needs to be in prison. He needs to actually be under the prison cell. But this is the way I am. And I know you don't want to get started in the government, but I got to say this one thing. Okay, first of all, anything the government is for, I tend to be against because I figure it's a moneymaker for them somewhere down the line. So I tend to go the other way.
There you go.
I go against. So let's get into just a little bit more about, because I drink teas and we do tinctures. There are so many trees, like you just mentioned one, that, and all these, our Indian ancestors, I mean, they knew all these things and they were shamed out of it, like they didn't know what they were talking about. When they would,
well, that's the only way the colonists got over here, got well. You know, it's like Joe Pye weed, named after the Indian that made the thing. Otherwise, no colonists. Now, many things out there are beneficial. Like I tell you, my favorite one to advise people on is thyme, THYME. That most people have on their spice shelf. All right, it's got thymol in it. That was the number one cure for gunshot wounds, World War I.
oh, wow.
And you could take that and make a tea out of it. You got something, a teaspoon of that's more powerful than like 10 bottles of Bactine. And that's your number one cure if you got a bad infection, is use thymol. They also use that in beehives and whatnot to kill off most of the parasites and all that sort of thing that affect bees.
Because we lost a hive. We're beekeepers, and we did lose a hive. Yeah, so thyme. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have some growing by the beehives.
Oh, yeah, thyme is a very powerful. It's one of your number one things. Then you get into oregano. Back in the day, we had the flu wiki for the preppers. We sit around, we talk about H1. That's nothing new. We already been prepping for that a long time ago. It's like elderberry will coat the flu bug. There's a little spiky thing, looks kind of like COVID, and the elderberry will coat that to reduce it, replicate, etc. So we got into that, and then oregano oil, very powerful. Things of this nature are better than the pharmaceuticals, and no side effects. So it's a great thing.
Well, before we get to the next one, I just wanted to say
what type of herbs do you grow?
Oh, I grow everything. I love, if I could only have one herb, it would be the comfrey plant. I love the comfrey plant.
Oh, yes.
I mean, this thing, I make all kinds of salves.
That's purple thread,
we're going to have some segments. Yeah, we're going to have more than this show right here. I'll tell you that right now. I'm just telling you, I am enjoying this interview. The comfrey plant.
Great. I am too. It's nice to have like-minded people. If I didn't know about like ashwagandha, my mom is elderly, 95, and she had bouts of anxiety, things of this nature. And they're going to put her on tranquilizers, whatever. But I got her to where she'd make her own tea for herself or get me if I saw her, she'd getting dingy. But if you give ashwagandha to her, she's calmed down. And so it takes a spike off of it. It's greatest stuff.
Like my mother,
and it's good for many other things, but I couldn't have lived with her to take care of her if I didn't have the ashwagandha.
I know what you meant to get some from my mother. She's living with us right now.
I'm sorry.
We're going to have to call it a day.
Sound's cutting in and out.
Can you believe the show is already over? Ron, you're going to have more segments, okay? At least once a month. At least once
a month. I'd love it. Yeah. Let's see if everybody go out to prepper-fiction.com.
There you go. Okay, Ron, thank you for being on the show. And guys, thank you so much for watching. If you would like to send emails, continue to do that. Donna at donnasedge.com. Donna at donnasedge.com.